Whoa. Hey, Dan, can you throw me a baseball hat?
I'm loving that asphalt patch on Big Springs, Chris.
Just turning up my volume.
I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay, I cannot hear anyone, so I'm going to try again. Yeah, that's not going to work.
Can you hear us, Jesse?
Yay, I can hear you.
Right.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's helpful. Let's see. Change devices there. Okay, so who do we have? Now my screen is all crazy. So I can't see you all at once anymore, but
You got John.
okay, got John, got Dan and Eric. And that is all we need. Great, thank you guys. Let's see. Okay, so it is 7:03. We will call to order. See who else. Hey, Chris, and I see Rick. Hey, Rick.
Hello.
Hi.
Going. So we have public comment time for anyone. We could take public comment now, and then if there's any questions anyone has at any point to just go ahead and raise a hand, and we can add in comment too as we go. So, I mean, first thing I have on the list is you, Chris, just talking about you wanted to present the SMS project, to upgrade the sidewalk by the library and a couple of crosswalks in town. So what is the SMS project?
Okay, yeah, not so much a presentation, but initial input from the board as I reached out to go through Netherlands planning process. So SMS is a safer means initiative that CDOT has.
Help me just remember not to forget
The Safer Main Streets, CDOT has available for small municipalities to improve infrastructure in their town. Netherlands applied for these funds a few months ago, and the project that we applied for was to improve the sidewalk along the library side of Highway 72, and improve the crosswalks in town, particularly the one at the visitor center, and the one at the library, and upgrade them to a signalized crosswalk. So we applied for these funds. It's for a project of valued at $350,000. The DDA has agreed to award 20% of that project, 70,000, and we were awarded those funds a month ago now. I think actually maybe even in December. It takes a while to go through CDOT's process. The IGA takes a while. Every step of the process takes time. So we've made it through the IGA. We have our engineer in place to begin design. Now I'm coming to each board to get input. So in your packet, there's a basically just a picture, and it's only for the purpose of showing you the location of where the sidewalk is. No design whatsoever right now. It's just where it's going. These are two places that we're focusing on. The project is to, again, install a sidewalk. Now, the original intent of that sidewalk when that was constructed was to install paver. And so I want to bring that original intent back. And then also some traffic calming components. And I don't actually know what that looks like, so I'm looking for input on that. I have presented this to the DDA. Like I said, they're funding 20% of it. And the only input I received from them, from their liaison actually, was a cost analysis of concrete versus paver. So, you know, I was going to put in your packet, I didn't get to it. I have these pavers here. They're actually made of ceramic from a company called Hydro Pavers. They're pretty cool. They're porous, they don't clog. They come in a variety of different colors. And I can share, I've got all kinds of specs and information that I can share with you. I could send out after the meeting. This is the company here. It's backwards. Hydro Pavers. So that's what I was thinking about installing. One member of the DDA just wanted some input on cost analysis of concrete versus pavers, and concerns of whether it's worth it. So that's on my list to provide that. That particular member would rather just see a conventional sidewalk. It's kind of what I'm feeling. But if that was only one voice, well, actually there was another person on the meeting too that kind of I did reach out to the PD reached out to me about the signalized crosswalks, having concerns about backing up traffic. I really want to install sidewalks that are stamped concrete, so that they're well defined, and eliminate the problem of paint being peeled up. So what happens year after year is CDOT will put paint in the road and then plow it up. This year, and they only do it once every 3 years. So this year they came by, they put the paint in the road, and of course we had a snowy May, and it immediately peeled a lot of it up. It took. So what I'd like to do is stamp concrete to really delineate that crosswalk. But I'm kind of limited to what CDOT will allow and what's within their specs. They're pretty narrow. So, and then whatever Nederland does, they kind of own it. Pass that responsibility on to Nederland to maintain. Something out there that's odd and want to fight for it, it'll become Nederland's problem if it's, you know.
So the stamped concrete is approved? I mean, that's one of the CDOT okays?
I don't know. I'm gonna push for it. seems like a reasonable ask. It's durable and easy to see, and helps with, I think, their maintenance of not having to paint as often, maybe. So I don't know. We'll find
Okay.
out. I've seen it on other
Can I
roads.
throw in two more comments here, or do you want to keep going?
I mean, I think that's about it. So I'm looking for input from you guys. And once I get input from all the boards, and I'll go to our engineers, we'll begin a conceptual design, and I'll come back to you for input on that.
Okay, cool. Well, the first thing is, yeah, I'm behind you on that. Whatever it takes to do a stamped concrete or something like that. That seems like a great idea. But I also just want to highlight, like, coming out of that bus, I use the Ned bus a lot. So it's not just the library. I mean, you can call it the library crosswalk, but I think we should emphasize that it's also everybody getting off that bus is trying to get across there too. So although it's a lot more traffic than just like the library. And then one of the things the library is super concerned with is that darn 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. So is that going to get taken care of in this situation?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
so that'll go down the road a bit.
that was specifically proposed in my application.
Sweet. Okay. Okay. Well, then that sounds like a win from their point of view.
And the to your point about the bus crossing, I agree. So the current crosswalk actually crosses, I think that's Jackson Street to the west, and it goes to like kind of a flush sidewalk that borders a ditch. So we would like to move the sidewalk to the east side of Jackson, connect it with the TIP project. So we have like a nice continuous
So it would
sidewalk.
kind of go to where the Nook is, the Nook place.
Yes, that's what
Good.
we'd like to do. So and I'll see if CDOT will allow me to extend that little piece of sidewalk. It's probably about 150 feet. So what will probably happen is that the next time I bring a concept drawing to you, there'll be a version of that connection.
Okay. Yeah, and then my last comment is I like the paver idea, but I also think Netherlands should have like kind of solidify what the sidewalk should be, because it seems like we've got 32 versions of sidewalks. So is this paver in any other part of Netherlands, or is this going to be number 31?
Number 31.
And will it, do you think it would take, and like other projects might keep, I'd just kind of keep it a little more uniform as opposed to.
I've proposed in the TIP project to have portions, the curb extensions to be pavers. And the reason why these pavers are kind of cool is the carbon footprint is reduced from typical concrete, and they're actually porous, which is important to some folks. And I mean, I'll be honest, concrete is cheap and easy, really easy for conventional sidewalk. All about it. But I'm trying to follow the intent of what passports have wanted there. I'm not opposed to concrete at all. And so I'm going to do this cost analysis for the DDA. I'm going to get input from SAB. I imagine SAB is probably more in favor of a porous or a paver material, something alternative to concrete. But I don't know. It could surprise me. I don't really know.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the last of my comments, was just like maybe try to hopefully get a little more uniform as all these little mini projects kind of get put together. You know, they're all coming from different funding sources, so you end up with what we have.
Yes.
Hi, Chris. That all sounds great. Real quick question about the signalizing of the crosswalks. Is there a middle ground where we could just have a sign on either side of the street without an active signal? Just because I know some once the paint gets scraped off, it's difficult sometimes to tell the best place to cross for people that aren't familiar with town. But just a sign on either side of the road would probably be sufficient.
There currently is. And I'll have to double check. It may even be lit. And so the next step is signalized crosswalk. That is the middle ground that you're suggesting, which already exists. And I've received a bit of feedback on the difficulty of, crossing the road in Nederland. And so that's kind of the next step.
Does that exist at all the main crossing points in town? A sign on either side of the street?
It should, yeah.
Huh.
There's
Okay.
one missing by the rock shop.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm picturing right now.
That one is missing.
Okay.
So this project will reinstall that.
Was that stolen?
It was removed some years ago by a previous police chief request to CDOT, and the rationale was that cars kept stopping too frequently along the highway, which caused traffic. But that happens to be a popular crosswalk, and I get requests back all the time.
Okay.
And right now is the only crosswalk in this project that's being signalized, that we're considering being signalized, the library crosswalk, or is it more than that one?
Library crosswalk in the visitor center.
And the visitor center. Yeah, it's hard not to see that it won't cause more traffic backups, but at the same time, it's hard not to see that it obviously will cause safer pedestrian crossing. So that's a tough one.
It is. It's always this balancing act of, it's a walking project. So it's a balancing act between driving and walking or parking, but it really is about pedestrians.
Well, I know driving through a couple of strips on Boulder, and I think it's Canyon, they've got a couple of those electrics pedestrian, and that's a very heavily carred road, and it doesn't seem to cause that much trouble. I know it's different here. When the leaf peepers show up, it's going to be a mess, right? But other than that, I wouldn't think it'd be that bad. At least the library one. Now the other one by the rock shop is a different situation, but the library one, I just see mostly people getting off the bus and then the occasional library patron.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like the library crosswalk, what could be signalized without significantly impacting traffic. And I guess the only other downside to that is that you have big flashing lights going off now and then. But
Yeah, but it's definitely not traffic like that rock shop. I mean, that's just
No.
100% constant.
right, so if we signalize the visitor center crosswalk, that would be more probably more impactful on the traffic flow issue. Maybe.
Yeah, it could
I
just
don't
be
know.
flashing all the time.
Or
Yeah.
maybe there's an option, I don't know, on the people that do this signalized thing, like on demand signalized by the library, but maybe it's like a time thing over at the rock shop. So at least 20 cars go by and then the human thing comes up or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a timed version.
Larry
Yeah.
requested the same.
I was just thinking as well. Yeah, that could be nice. It could almost improve traffic from its current condition of people just, running across at will and causing people to slam on their brakes, to just have batches of people moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like crossing Broadway on the Pearl Street Mall, something like that.
A good analogy.
Did you say there was a map too, Chris? Where could we take a look at that?
Let's see if I have it on my computer. Hold on.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I got some form.
In there too?
I'm gonna put in there.
Those could go at the same time.
And while you're looking for that, when it comes to the hydro pavers versus the concrete, I do agree with John that, we do seem to be using lots of different materials for lots of different projects. But if we felt like this would be the start of retrofitting the entire town to something like hydro pavers over time, and if we develop that as kind of a strategy and put that in place for people who might come after us, then I would be more in favor of it. But if we're just doing it just as a kind of experiment for this one project, and we're not going to implement it as a kind of overall strategy for when we start replacing concrete sidewalks in the future, then maybe we should just stick with concrete.
I hear you. And I'm fine with that. I do have pavers proposed for some of the tip project, like I said, the curb extension, to offer some permeability. But you're right, there is no standard. I was looking for other materials. I'm sorry, I don't have it in this computer. I don't have it on this computer. I work from two different ones. Unfortunately, I don't have it, but it really was just kind of a placeholder.
Yeah, no, I would just concur with what Eric and those guys were saying too, is to see what, I get it, because you have to see what kind of materials works best, like functionality wise. But then after that, hopefully you can try and use that, whatever works best throughout the rest of town. That would be like the dream.
Yeah, if there was a standard material that was kind of like a spec that Netherlands followed, that would be helpful to me. But there really isn't. Seems like concrete is the go-to material, or asphalt, for a road. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. Netherlands is always the guinea pig.
Yeah, so it's not like we're against the pave. It sounds like a great thing, but yeah, it'd be cool if we could get solidarity on it.
Well, so the intent, I think, in the future is also to replace the soil sidewalks on 2nd Street. Again, the original intent there was supposed to be pavers as well, but they ran out of money. Netherlands ran out of money and had the dirt sidewalk. Which is not great for the porous material right next to the sidewalk. So someday those will be pavers also.
Does this project tie in with the other one that is being discussed, like the downtown sidewalks and the burying of the power lines grant? Is that anything related?
Yeah, there's a bit of continuity between all these projects. The TIP project, like I mentioned to John earlier, could connect directly to this, so that would be continuous, seamless connection between RTD, safe ADA, seamless connection between RTD and the library. And then again, the crosswalk would just be an extension of TIP. So the TIP project would go all the way to the corner of the highway, and then a sidewalk would be or a crosswalk would be created to get to East 1st Street. And then fingers crossed, if we get funding for 1st Street improvements, then we'll really have continuity between all these projects.
And so, Chris, if we did get funding for that 1st Street project, would hydro pavers be the proposed sidewalk material for that project? Could
No,
they be?
concrete. Oh, they could be. Yeah, I was thinking concrete, but TIP project is going to be mostly concrete with a little bit of paver sprinkled in. So,
We're gonna eat pretty soon. I'm making tacos.
some of it was actually going to be, I proposed wood. So like the area between Crosscut, it's already wood at the at the co-op. But then the area between Crosscut and the kind of in space there, thought it could be a deck, and the sidewalk could be moved to the edge of the right of way for more room for a loading zone. And wood would just be easier right there. Again, though, that'd be number 32.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess it seems to me that if we are willing to sort of push pavers for the First Street project and to replace the dirt sidewalks in the future, then it might be valuable to push pavers for this project. And if we're not going to do that, and if we're going to go concrete for those projects, then I think we should stick with concrete for this one. I think that's a logical way to look at it. And obviously, it could fall through. We might not get the funding, or maybe we don't get enough funding to do pavers, and the best laid plans fall apart. But I don't know. It seems on one hand like we should be pushing better materials that do offer better drainage for an area that needs drainage, which is Nederland everywhere. Yeah, that's a tough one. I look forward to see how you go about solving it. And obviously maybe pavers are just too expensive and it won't even be an option. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, point taken.
Okay, so I mean, if that's good for now, we can carry on sending in feedback, I would say, to Chris or to myself, and we'll forward it on. Keep thinking about it, and then yeah, hopefully you'll bring back the next kind of round of engineering and maps and site plans for us.
Okay, yeah, I meet with SAB Thursday, and I'm requesting that they have what they call a sustainability scorecard.
Yeah.
And they score their projects with. And so I'm going to request that they score the project and get input from them. And based on all this feedback, we'll come up with a conceptual drawing. I'll present to you guys. And you'll have a better idea, pictures of 1,000 words.
Awesome. Great, thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
So I think Tanya is here too. If you are around and hearing us, Tanya, if you want to talk a little bit about the egress, the Big Springs egress updates that we've had lately. I know Eric is kind of up to date on some of this stuff too. We had a meeting on Sunday about it, and we've met a couple of times with the fire chief over the last month too. So we've got a few updates on that. Hey Tanya, thank you so much for joining.
Hi. I thought I'd start with a little history of where we are now. I guess my involvement began around 2015 when all the neighbors received a letter in the mail, I think it was, discussing the egress going up the Doe Trail. And I, communicated with a bunch of my neighbors, and we went down to one of the first commissioner meetings in opposition of the location, not necessarily of the idea. Really sensitive ecological wetland zone with really large diameter spruce and ponderosa, really unique special area, and not really good. Once you get past the spring, becomes really treed with really matchstick, lodgepole, pine, down trees, lop and scatter, really steep draw, really dangerous for an evacuation. And we, as the neighbors, stood in opposition and became kind of contentious as the firefighters felt it was an affront to their safety and felt very offended that we weren't rallying around this idea of an egress. Which, as I said before, nobody was ever against the idea in principle. It was a location. So after many meetings, the design advisory team, or whatever it was called, formed. And it was Chris was on there, Pelletier, and Alicia, and Randy Lee, and neighbors. And we hiked that route many times, and with us trying to preserve the wetland area as much as possible, save the trees that, but you know, it became an engineering, complicated engineering, because this had already been passed by, I suppose, the BOT at the time. So it was a done deal. So we were just trying to save some trees and preserve the wetland as much as possible. You know, I showed them a few alternative routes to go around the wetland, and Randy was opposed to any other changes. But the final bill came to about close to 600,000 after the engineering bill, and that was like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And then I heard nothing about it, and it was because of a lack of funding, which, to be honest, I'm really grateful for, because in the meantime, Richter and, you know, Kevin from the Forest Service and other parties realized that the top of the ridge was just made a lot more sense.
I know the Boulder County Commissioners even requested that an alternative was
Yeah,
looked at.
I mean, it may have been because of that they started
Yeah.
looking at that, because we were still sending letters to the commissioners, and, you know, like just saying, you can't let this happen. This is too special of a place. Regardless, it was good because the ridge is going to be mitigated in Foresight 3, and clear cut to a degree, so that it can be a fire break and a place for firefighters to put retardant. And so that, you know, is happening. When, I don't know, because they're a little bit behind schedule because of Cameron Peak and whatnot. But so, long story short, the ridge is where we want to be. And there is not an easy way to get there from Doe Trail unless a neighbor can grant egress. So I think that's kind of where everybody's stalemated right now. There are some alternative routes that stack up to the ridge. And there's a route that we went and hiked with Jess like a month ago that goes back behind it, would cut a lot of trees, but less steep. So there, I mean, there's no like good way to get there unless we use the neighbors, and that is still, I think, in discussion. So hopefully that can come to an agreement, because then I don't think there'll be any opposition by anybody to the egress. I think it's just right now, you know,
Yeah.
with the reason, hopefully they don't cut some of those big ponderosas up top there. But the wetland is still, for me, I think it's, to me, I would fight it, you know, till the chainsaws and the backhoes start coming. But in the end, they'll do what they do. And I understand the need for it. And hopefully we never have to use it, but it will still be a nice fire break, and a nice place to defend the town should we need it, a fire coming from the east. So that's basically it. I'm assuming you all know, you know, you know, with the egress is for the possibility that something occurred to the west, and so the neighbors to the east in eastern Big Springs would be trapped and couldn't access the roads out to the highway. So it is essentially a dead end back there for, I don't know how many houses, but so I mean, it's a situation. There's a lot of neighborhoods like that in the mountains, and it is a risk that we all understand, I think, living up here. So Jess, anything else you want to add regarding what, you know, the meeting? Oh,
No, yeah.
there's funding now. That's the thing. Now there's
Yeah.
money. Well, maybe the mayor requested a grant from Nagusi, and he's all for it. I think it just has to get green lighted, you know, up the chain of command. But once, and so that got me really, because it could happen now. If they get the money, there'll be no more dilly dally, and they're going to have to pick a route and go for it. So, you know, I guess it's good news that the money's coming. So Jess, to you, I'll give you the floor.
No, thank you so much, Tanya. It's really great to have, you know, someone else from the committee that we've been having these meetings with the fire chief over the last month. So yeah, you covered a lot of awesome stuff there. I know. So the initial route, like a few years ago, that was proposed. I went to the
commissioner hearing down in Boulder about it. And at that point, it was recognized that the Colorado Parks and Wildlife analysis, it said that the topography of that route could lead to a fire tunnel effect, just with the really steep grades. So the fire, you know, obviously the fire department have a lot of hesitation using this particular route that was, so they've done the engineering for this route. There's pullouts like every 500 feet, but the, you know, the grade is a maximum of like 14% up this, up the egress, the first one. So it's really complicated engineering and a really high initial cost and the annual upkeep. So it really sounds like at the moment, the 3 routes being kind of considered are the access from Doe Trail up onto the ridge, from the private property up onto the top of the ridge, and then from lower Doe Trail, like kind of towards the, more towards the reservoir on the east end. And I think, you know, by far the preferable route for the fire department and from the perspective of parks is going to be the one through using the driveway that already exists, which is private property. And there's it sounds like there's a few different routes to get in to achieve in this. There's a few different kind of routes the town can take to the usage of this. So yeah, so basically we're just been evaluating a number of different alternatives to this, and hopefully we're going to be doing a SWOT analysis soon, just to kind of really get into the nitty gritty of the weaknesses and strengths of the different routes. And hopefully you have a few things to add to, Eric. I know you've probably been a little bit hearing about some of the technical details, but yeah, that was it. We just kind of wanted to update you about that, and yeah, just kind of see what's
To me, it seems that there's one very logical route, and that route is to use the private driveway to access an egress road that would start on the top of the ridge, rather than have to build a road to get to the top of the ridge. Building that road is gonna, whether it's from the east side or from Doe Trail on the west side, it's gonna cost a lot more money, probably be out of the scope of the funding opportunity that we actually have through the congressman, through Nagoos. So, and also that's not even a guaranteed thing. I mean, he said that we're looking at, he's proposing 10 projects, and we're looking at 3 to 5 of them being funded. And so we would have to be kind of on the lucky side to be one of the projects that was funded. One of our negatives, as I understand it, is just how small our population is. But our positive is that it is one of the only projects he's proposing to go through appropriations at the federal level that is actually a life or death issue. And because it is a life or death issue, it could be picked up and could be funded. And that's kind of our strength, is that this would really save lives if there were to be a fire that was coming from the west towards Big Springs. So
do you know how much funding is under consideration?
It seems to be about $600,000 is what would be possible. And we've kind of spec'd out that this would cost $750,000. So, I mean, even if we do get the federal funds, it's possible they wouldn't actually be quite enough to cover any of the routes, depending on what the engineering costs actually end up being. Because we haven't actually gotten any bids on these alternative routes, obviously, because they haven't gone through the process and they haven't been approved. So the route that has been approved is the route right through Doe Trail, which is down in the valley, which cuts through the wetlands, which chops down all these older growth trees in the area, and also is not ideal for firefighting. It's not ideal for environmental and climate issues. It's not ideal for really anything. It's not ideal even for evacuation, right? Because it would be such a dangerous evacuation. So the safest evacuation is along the ridge. The safest way to access it is through the private property. And that's probably the only route we could actually afford with the amount of money that's on offer anyway, is the way that I'm understanding our situation. So I think we really need to push for that route, because it's the most logical. And I understand that the neighbors' primary concerns are traffic coming through their private drive, that people will be on dirt bikes or ATVs or mountain bikes or hiking or camping back there using the egress route as a trail, even though, you know, we've obviously said it would be closed except for in case of emergencies. but that seems to be their primary concern. And to me, that's not a concern that actually, outstrips the concern for not only the environment, but also for the potential loss of life. So I think we just need to keep on negotiating with them and make it beneficial for them to cooperate basically with the project if we do get funded.
Okay, so what do you think our next steps should be? So, I mean, I kind of have on the list just to kind of solicit residential feedback and some form of community education on, on the issue.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that that maybe something could be put together that could explain the situation, because I think it's still out there that there are other egress options like Wildwood or Peak View, which the reason why those are not being considered for this egress is not because they wouldn't be useful. They're not being considered because they don't evacuate everyone. The people who are east of that area would still be trapped in the case of a fire starting in the west. So I know that the fire department wants to see egresses on Wildwood and maybe even Peak View as well, but that they're not the top priority because they don't serve the highest number of people. And I think there's 225 homes back there, just for reference. And so we can multiply that by 2 or 3 to get the number of people that would potentially need to evacuate. And in that context, the Doe Trail Ridge route just makes the most sense to pursue right now. So to find someone to explain that to folks so that maybe they aren't distracted by the previous ideas of other egress routes coming off of other roads, kind of understand what the purpose of it is, because to ask for the money to only serve, half or 1/3 of the Big Springs neighborhood doesn't really make sense. And it really would weaken our proposal on our application. So yeah, there could be some value there in maybe putting together a packet that's easily accessible, and even doing some work on the ground and going to neighbors in the area and making sure that they have access to all this information rather than it just being in our heads.
Great. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of, just kind of, I've got all this information anyway, so just putting it into some kind of small informational flyer, ideally by the June 5th cleanup as part of a wider kind of packet that we're hopefully going to be getting out to people. Any questions from the
Tanya,
rest
you're
of the board?
muted.
Oh,
You're talking. Tanya.
Jess, on this information package you're gonna put out in the next couple of weeks, I suppose it will just talk about the egress, but not really locked in on a route, because we don't really have the route locked in yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to explain that, I think.
Yeah,
And
they
It's
once
it's
it's
saying
around-
that it's neck down to 3 routes versus 5 routes is what I'm hearing. Is that right, Eric?
yeah.
Yeah, and all of
Yeah,
them
it's-
traverse the ridge line.
Right. So every route that is currently being considered now has some combination of getting up onto that ridge and getting out that way, rather than the route that has already been approved by the BOT. Right. So there is a route that has been approved, and that's what kind of makes this situation a bit complicated, is because what I personally really don't want to see happen is see the egress built on the currently approved route, because I don't think it's a good one.
No.
So that's where things get a little touchy.
Yeah, that's kind of the nightmare scenario, is to get the money. And I don't think it's going to happen because Richter feels like he really wants the ridge. But since the engineer plans, and they already spent, 20, 30,000, I'm just saying, throwing that number out on engineering plans. I mean, there are some members of the town government that want to just use the old route, but it's not safe. And if you're talking, I didn't realize there were 200 houses back here. I live in this neighborhood. That would be scary, all those people going up that draw. So, I mean, we need to be realistic of what is the intention of this. It's not just to have it, it's to be used, and it's meant to be used by any kind of car. Like, you shouldn't have to have a Jeep to use it. That's the criteria for the road. So anyway.
Yeah, and just annual maintenance too, and actual feasibility of safety. So do we need to consider doing some kind of a nod of our board to move ahead with this? I mean, or is this just a discussion at this time? and we're okay with just putting together this kind of general informational flyer at this time.
I do think and I always think that this is the case, but I do think it's valuable to have a formal sort of recommendation from as many groups as possible. But I'm not sure that what we've just done today is enough. Might not be enough. I don't know for folks on ProSeb. It depends on how you feel to do a formal recommendation of some kind. But maybe we could circle back on it at some point and actually take some kind of a vote.
Yeah, I would. This is just on as a presentational, informational right now too, so that sounds good. But yeah, please, if you have questions, do like reach out to any of us, any of the rest of the board, and we'll get you in touch with the fire chief and do what we can to get the right information out there. Yeah,
and if anybody wants to go walk the route, I'd be happy to go with folks. I know Tanya's been guiding people all the time along the various different proposed routes and pointing out the pros and cons. So if anybody's interested in actually walking it and seeing it on the ground, I think that's probably the most useful way to really understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's hard to really visualize it from a map. I mean, even though the map does a good job of showing that the ridge is a very clear and obvious way to get out, but when you're on the ground and it's much better.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and in my 2 cents here, if it's worth anything, totally obvious that the driveway is the way to go. I think it always has been. But we did do a title research on the properties involved in trying to access through the driveways. It's 5 different properties.
Yeah.
So it's not just one, and then we'd have to probably use eminent domain to take another piece of property to actually make it connect. So it gets real complicated, and that's why sort of the lower hanging fruit, even though it's so devastating and would scar so much of the hillside to go a different route, it's lower hanging because it's property that we have access to. So that's just, totally agree, driveways are the way to go, but it gets complicated when trying to negotiate with the current property owners. That's really the key here, is trying to work with those guys and hang the carrot and get them to come.
Well, just curiosity, what kind of carrot are you hanging? A real carrot? Like,
Yeah, money.
we just hit a 20% property value increase. You guys are going to be frozen at your taxes for the next 25 years. Have we thrown a carrot like that, or is it like you get a bumper sticker?
I think the plan is that they would be offered like financial compensation.
Okay.
In the tens of thousands.
Okay.
The property tax freezing is a good idea. I don't know if that's in our power though, since it's Boulder.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Boulder's got to be involved too. I mean, this is all a big saving communities and stuff. But I mean, I would think as a landowner, if I could get some guaranteed 1%, 2% increase frozen for a long period of time, and when I pass away, what do I care? In a way, like that's a benefit to me. That's a carrot. That's a real carrot.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been trying, I think, some real carrots. They're just not very cooperative. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
Well, the other thing to note is that this doesn't really require any real modification of their property in any way. I mean, this is just building a road up to the boundary, So
right. But I'm saying if you're trying to give them an enticement, like make it really nice.
And that's kind of that's exactly what the fire chief kind of was proposing. Just give them all these offers, various things that they do, and this is kind of the plan. They can take this or not.
Yes, I understand that we are prepared to throw everything that we can at it as a town, and we'll see how that ends up going. But I also understand that there are, there are less carrot-like ways that we can incentivize them to take a carrot because they might not have any other option when it really comes down to it. So.
So yeah, I think this is just kind of one of the reasons why residential kind of
That was right.
feedback and recommendations is going to be really important.
Going
for them.
fast on like a drop bar bike compared to a
Yeah.
road going down Flagstaff.
Or did mom go with you?
She didn't go up Flagstaff.
No.
But
Who's with you
yeah, no,
there,
the-
Up the creek fast.
Sorry about that.
oh, it's good. But this is I mean, if there's no more feedback kind of on the egress, this is a pretty good segue talking about wildfire. If we want to segue to Rick's kind of update on the kind of home mitigation, if you're available, Rick.
Sure. Excuse me. Yeah, I mentioned at the last short meeting that didn't happen, the Colorado State Forest Service came out with a new home ignition zone guide. It's a big improvement over the last one that's out there. I'm going to grab the link and put it in the chat, but I don't see chat here. So maybe on mine, I'm not having it, or
Yeah, it may be different on Zoom here.
yeah. So maybe I won't, but the link that was in the last meeting notes.
Yeah, I'll
And,
forward that again.
couple- Okay, that get you too as well. If you got a minute and want to scroll through it, I can share my screen and bring that up. Or if you want to look at it on your own, that's fine. I can just kind of give you what some of the highlights are. Depends on what you've got time for and what you'd like to do tonight.
I mean, I'd say, yeah, breakdown of some of the highlights of the changes would be really helpful.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen and pull it up here. Oh. I guess I need to be allowed to do that by the host.
All right, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Hmm. Not seeing how to. Okay,
like I got
you
it.
should be able to. Yeah.
I think just right click maybe on the participant.
Hmm.
Well, now my system won't let me do it.
Yeah, it says on my end that you should be able to.
Yeah, I think it's on my end now. It won't let me do it. And that would need me
Hey,
shutting down.
Brian, I can fire it up and I can share my screen and you can just tell me what to do.
Oh, okay. That'd be great.
All right, give me a second.
All these things that I guess I should have learned in the last year of doing Zoom meetings, all these little things that we're all learning, these ins and outs.
There's all
of,
technical stuff.
And they keep changing it constantly.
I thought
Oh,
the
I know.
AI was
And
going
this
to
is
take
new.
care of it all.
That's right. This is a new
But we
computer for me too, and I haven't set it up with everything. So
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves for a minute. I filed it and now I don't know where I filed it.
Yeah.
okay. So let me just talk about it a little bit. Get started there. So this new one, I think it's laid out much better. It's about 16 pages total. It's got a combination of good descriptions of the different zones around your house, good descriptions of different types of forests and best type of mitigation for them. Has checklists that you can follow to go through and start doing that. Got far better pictures.
Yeah.
Some of them are a little bit scary to look at. So a lot of pictures with fire in them, but we've had a couple of fires recently, so they've gotten some good pictures out of it that really shows where defensible spaces made a big difference. Both down, some of the pictures are from the 416 fire down by Durango a few years ago. Fires from Cold Spring, or pictures from Cold Springs fire. So had unfortunately lots of fires, which means there's been lots of pictures being taken and good examples of where this has really worked. Oh, looks like we're. Hey, there
Yeah,
we
I
go.
can see it. Looks good.
Yeah. Okay. So stop right there on that picture. That is the Cold Springs fire. You can go back up, just scroll. There you go. You can kind of see upper right is Peak to Peak Highway and Sugarloaf Road. That's the fire started kind of straight in the middle there over the hill, down by where Cold Springs interrupts or intersects with Peak to Peak Highway. You can see that complex of buildings there that were all saved, all newer buildings, good space around them, few trees, metal roofs. If you look to the left of that, you can see kind of a spot in the dirt, which is where, right there, yep. That's where Charlie Schmidtman's house was, one of our captains at the fire department. His house was an older house. They'd done some mitigation, but the fire was more intense there, and his house unfortunately burned down. So you can kind of see where kind of space things out a little bit and give some room around it. It really makes a difference if you can. So we scroll down a little bit more, and I'll just kind of stop you a couple places as we go. Probably get a little delay on it. Okay, that's another. Oh, you go back to that picture there with the house. Yeah, back up a little bit. It looks like it's a delay. Yeah, that picture right there. Good. This is 416 fire. They're doing what we call a burnout operation behind that house. The fire was on the hill behind, and they're creating a much bigger defensible space by burning out that material there. You can see there's plenty of room around that house to work. After that fire burns, yes, that part's going to be black, but it's still going to be green around the house. And having that kind of space really helps us out with being able to work on something like that. Like we've mentioned before, if the fire is heading straight towards you and the winds are 70 miles an hour, not much we can do. But if you're on the side of it, we call it the flanks of the fire, or even offset from the head of the fire some, having that space gives us a lot of room to work. And these kind of burnout operations on a fire, we're doing them in the best condition we can, and they work most of the time. On prescribed fires, it's much more rigid. If you're not within the prescription, the humidities aren't right, the winds aren't right, all those things, you don't do them. On fires, that tends to be a little looser with that because you don't have the time to wait for the right conditions all the time. And I've seen them work really well, and I've seen them go not so well. We were working with a burnout on Pine Gold fire over in Grand Junction last year. The engine I was working with were helping burnout operation that unfortunately jumped the line, and we weren't able to catch it, and it burned a lot of extra acres. Fortunately, most of what was there was just timber and grass, so wasn't as tragic as it could have been. So if we can scroll down a little bit more here. And maybe scroll a little and wait for it to catch up. Again, we're talking about the home ignition zone, different spaces there. Those haven't changed much, just maybe a little better description of those. The picture of the side of the house with the fire along the edge there, that's done in a lab where they actually blow embers towards a structure they built and see what burns. picture that I'm seeing right now.
Mhm.
These are before and after. I'm not sure what you're seeing.
Yeah, let me know if there's a page you want me to go to.
Okay, yeah, it just kind of keeps scrolling through. You can just kind of see how this is laid out, just kind of slowly through. Lots of different materials to use around your house. Here's some checklists like we talked about. Different parts that are important, walls, decks, roofs, all of those things. Unfortunately, in town, we've required Class A roofs for a long, long time. That's nothing new. The distances haven't changed any. Again, more of the zones and checklists. Why don't you skip down to page 14, let it catch up to there.
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, we're in that 6% there, the 9 highest impact area. But here's the page 14, it gets into different forest types. And I think that we've done a really good job with this, and I really like it because it really talks about what works and what doesn't in different types of forests. Although I did notice that they left out ponderosa forest, which we don't have much of that up here, but we do have some. Lodgepole is big for us. Aspen, we have some, and spruce fir, we have some. And they've done a really good job in just a short section on each of these, talking about how you do the different kinds of mitigation and what works and what you need to do. Because we know there's lots of discussion over the years on lodgepole. Does thinning work? Does it not work? They talk about that here, where if you want to just hold there, when you go into lodgepole, if you're going to thin it out, no more than 30% of the trees at a time and focus on the smaller ones. Because the rest, if you do more than that, the rest will blow down. I found that on my property. I think a lot of other people have. If you look around where the Forest Service has done the patch cuts, a lot of the trees around the edges blow down because lodgepoles have shallow, wide roots, and they really like their neighbors to help keep them in place. So you start cutting them out of there and in big numbers, and a lot of the others fall down. Ponderosa are much better to be thinned. They have a big tap root, so they hold up better. They also do much better in fire, and they tend to build thicker bark after they've had fire on them. But like I said, I'm surprised they didn't mention ponderosa in here. Spruce and fir, which we have on our north-facing slopes around here, are a little more susceptible to that wind throw as well than ponderosa. So again, you want to thin those carefully and really remove ladder fuels. Aspens, we have some of that. For the most part, you don't have to do much of those with those. Older stands, I've got one on my property that I've actually gone through and cut out a lot of the evergreens in there and some of the dead aspen they're laying down just to kind of clean it up a little bit. But overall, they're pretty much self-protecting. They tend to bring a lot of moisture with them, and they don't grow unless there's moisture there. So anyway, really good information in this pamphlet. It's well worth taking a read through. A lot of it you folks already know. And we'll put this up on the town and the department's webpage pretty quick here so that everybody can take a look at it. So any questions on any of that?
I got a question. How does this apply to I'm up by the elementary school, there's roads all around, there's houses that are fairly close together. If you thin some of the trees, you're right to the neighbor's house anyway. So, does this really apply like if you're in that part of town?
It still does, and I understand the concerns. I have a friend who lives on Sunnyside, and his insurance company told him he had to cut back 100 feet or thin back 100 feet. He said, my property line's 40 feet away. I can't do that. And so that becomes a bit of a problem. And that becomes a negotiation with your neighbors as to what's enough and what's too much, and are you looking in their bedroom window from yours at 100 feet away or less. And that's some of the give and take on mitigation is what's your tolerance level for the privacy that a lot of us like having up here with trees close to the house. One of the before and after pictures in that pamphlet, the before is fairly thick woods, and the after you can see the neighbor's house, but it looks like feet away. They probably could have left a band of trees in there to give a little more shielding when they did that, but it's hard to say for sure. And each house is a little bit different. In those cases, really hardening your house is what makes the difference. Making sure you don't have little pockets in your siding, in your deck corners, things like that, where embers can pile up. And that's probably that's a more important thing to do than worrying about, every tree around your house and what you have to do with it. Is that those ember storms really take out a lot of houses.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Let's go to the questions. That's what I have here. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I am. No, thank you so much, Rick. Really, really helpful. No, I mean, I know, Eric, if you do want to speak at all, I know you've done the wildfire assessment recently. If you wanted to share that experience.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, having wildfire partners come up, they were much more reasonable than I think we expect. And, they actually want to save good trees rather than chop them down just because they're within some kind of, distance range or something like that. They're pretty smart about the way that they go about it. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've had them come out as well. Rick, or I guess others, do you think there'd be any town interest in doing sort of a formal presentation of the contents of this pamphlet in a kind of town setting, like at the community center or somewhere else?
Done like that in the past, but it's been a couple of years. I think kind of that on hold, but I can certainly get with Miranda and talk about that because she's starting to do what we're calling the Mitigation Monday. She's sending out tweets and Facebook posts on that each Monday, and we're working together on the content. So I think doing something like that this summer would be great if we could make that all work out. We could do a combination of in-person and Zoom depending on what the conditions are at the time.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've tried in the past and you just haven't had the turnout to make it worthwhile, but I certainly think there's a lot of people who would be more willing to spend an hour listening to people say what to do than they would be willing to spend 15 minutes to read through a pamphlet. And
yeah, I can agree with that. Also, the good news is that Wildfire Partners right now is extremely busy. They've had so many requests to do evaluations that they're backed up and they're actually hiring extra people to do those evaluations, which I think is great. They're getting out there and yeah, they are very reasonable. And it's like, if you saw in my picture, behind me is a big ponderosa that's well within 30 feet of my house. And it's what I've done is that one right behind me there. I've gone back behind it and thinned back further so I can keep that tree there. It's also on the windward side of my house, so that's where the fire is going to come from. So I've found ways to work around that one tree that I really want to keep close.
I read a headline which I thought might be useful for the mitigation for funding question around proposed Joe Biden wildfire preparedness initiative that was worth $2 billion or something. But looking at the fine print, I think it's mostly about thinning fuel rather than providing egress to communities. So I'm not sure if that's useful for the Big Springs side of things, but I think there probably will be money flowing to the Forest Service to try to do some thinning in the areas surrounding Nederland very soon.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you're going to talk about it later, Jessica. There's not a Forest Service, but a project that City of Boulder is working on that I think you guys have had an intro to already, that is actually going to go kind of in concert with what the Forest Service has already done and is planning around town. So we're kind of lucky that there's other people that are willing to pay for mitigation that's going to help protect our town.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that ends up, though.
My one question would be, I know, do you, Rick, or anyone else here, do you know if there is any chance of rehabilitating the Saws and Slaws program or something akin to?
Sure. How much time do you have?
Right, exactly.
Well,
10 minutes?
that's the problem, is it takes a lot of time to do that. It was all volunteers that did it. That was one of the things that, kind of caused its downfall. It was running out of, volunteer time.
Yeah.
There were some other factors involved as well, but that was a significant one of them.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand that there was at least one injury that caused some liability issues. And, when it's not incorporated as a 501c3 and it doesn't have insurance, then, it's going off town insurance, and that became an issue as well. So
Right.
I think that if it reinstated, it needs to be a bit more formalized and have a clear sort of set of responsibilities, and everyone knows who's responsible for what, so that when accidents inevitably happen, we know how to proceed.
I mean, would
Yeah.
that be kind of just playing off of what Brian said, just about having a kind of a meeting? Would this be something worth calling a special meeting for sometime over the summer to kind of talk about the future of mitigation in and around town?
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of get a brainstorming session together and see where to go. I was really active with Saws and Slaws for a couple of years as a volunteer and got plenty of people out for the projects. It was just finding people to keep the management running, and the guys who started it kind of got burned out after a few years, needed other people to pick it up, and other people weren't available.
Yeah. Yep, that's how it goes.
Well, there is active stacks right now running out of Gilpin.
That's
And
it,
they might be people to talk to about maybe doing a spin-off chapter in Nederland or something under their program, however they're managing liability concerns and getting volunteers and all those sorts of things. They might have a system already in place, and we could maybe learn from them.
Do you have contact info for them, Eric? Or
Yeah, I know the person who is, I think, the registered agent of the 501c3, so I can ask her how it's been going.
Yeah, the original Saws and Slaws in Coal Creek is still running, and I see their Facebook posts regularly, and they've got projects going. But there were also problems with being a subsidiary of them and how that would fit in and following their rules and things.
Yeah. Great. No, that's a good thing to think about and work towards. I think we should continue to follow this, as it's going to be an ongoing issue for Nederland. So
That sure is.
but yeah, kind of all along the same subject too, Rick. I mean, I know we've talked a little bit about the Take a Hike program in the past. I mean, do you and the fire department, do you have any areas that you would like to see used for that project? Have you kind of got any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mentioned a couple of them previous meeting, just hitting the different forest types and different kind of mitigation. Beyond that, I think listening to the presentation by the folks together got some really good ideas and really like what they're doing, looking beyond just the the here and now, but also some of the historic and some of the cultural aspects to it as well. I think is really important to get in there.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone wants to send over kind of just the routes, some route suggestions for that too. Like one of the ones I was considering recommending would be to park off of the East Magnolia, kind of near where the egress would end up on Magnolia and kind of the route around the kind of mountain, the point up there. There's just a lot of different varieties of mitigation, kind of old growth lodgepole, new plantings, aspen groves. So that would kind of cover a bunch of different kind of ecological settings. But yeah, if anyone has some suggestions about that, do send them over. And if not right now, I will just give you a quick update from, we are still in contact with Maya McHamer, from the director of the Boulder Watershed Collective. And so her recent feedback is they are still looking for, she's in the Boulder Watershed Collective, works with a company called Alterex, who would like to bring about 12 volunteers up to town. And they're looking for some kind of parks related volunteer projects to participate in. They've suggested maybe helping with creekside erosion or noxious weed pulls, and or planting, native willows or wetlands plants along the creekside area. So yeah, do send me any thoughts on projects that might work around that. I'm just going to kind of keep sending stuff over to Nikki, kind of our suggestions on that, and then get some kind of cohesion on what we want to ask for. I know they're happy to kind of join in on any trash cleanups or noxious weed pulls. And that is the Watershed Collective. And then on that note too, there's the town cleanup. So I know Wild Bear is doing they are doing a trash cleanup day around town on June the 6th, Sunday, June the 6th at like 10 a.m. So they are looking for something alternative to that to join in with. And on that note, I will just keep moving on if we've got no feedback on that, because we've still got a whole bunch to get through right tonight. Sorry, that's a lot. Right. So we've got, moving on to the Resilient Communities Netherlands Shoreline Trails Restoration Stewardship Project updates. I don't know if you're still there. I can't kind of see who's here still. Chris, hopefully you're still there. So I know Chris Pelletier had a citizen request form. That was you, okay. I know one of the first things, just to kind of tick off here, you had a request form to install a bike repair station in honor of Keith Larson, and just wanted us to come up with a few suggestions for the appropriate location to that. So yeah, that's kind of probably a good segue just to get into the site plan. I sent you guys the most recent site plan that came from Confluent Designs. I think they just sent that over this morning. So any feedback on the site plan from the landscape architects? We've just been meeting up and doing a few walkthroughs from that. As you can see, the site is now, there's kind of like 3 to 4 accent areas. There is accent area around the kind of entrance to the park on the southwestern corner. There's the art installation is now, if you want to refer to the site plan, it's on the northeastern corner of the wastewater treatment plant. And then there's also another accent area kind of on the southeastern corner of the treatment plant there, where the creek meets the reservoir. I mean, personally, Chris, like, it seems to make sense that a bike repair station would fit in at the entranceway area, kind of near where the bike racks are going in.
Yeah. Do we have bike racks there? I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, that sounds.
I haven't put them on the map yet, but we had the fund $900 for 2 bike racks in the budget.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Nikki and I were talking about potential locations, and we were thinking if there's some place in the park, that'd be great. We didn't want to have it too close to the skate park. We were concerned about encouraging bikes in the skate park. So that kind of defeats the purpose there. We thought about a place in town, like over by the visitor center might be a good spot too, for bikes driving by with a sign. But yeah, the park sounds great.
Oh, no, yeah, I mean, I didn't even realize that the rest of town was an option for that.
Yeah, I mean, we thought about a variety of places. So yeah, if you think the in this proposal or in Barker Meadows is a good place for it, then that's fine to me.
Well, and wasn't there another, you were setting up some bike racks somewhere else? And I thought it was more
Right, yeah,
towards
near the
First
RTD or,
Street, you know, or up by the RTD site. Yeah, either one. Weren't there a couple other places?
Exactly, yeah. And we want to have it in a place where it's kind of open, I think, and accessible, room to work on your bike. You know, there's a spot we're also thinking over by the bridge. We had some porta potties there for during the pandemic, and then the Nederland Senior Middle High School site is there. It's kind of a big concrete area. That spot might be a decent place for a bike.
that's probably more used by the bike. I think there's a lot of bike traffic along near the visitor center area in the RTD. That would probably be more used, I feel.
Yeah, and a lot of people will come up and they park in the RTD lot, right? And they pull their bikes off the thing. And if you had it there and there's already those bike racks there, and there's kind of like an open, you know, there's that one bench people can sit on waiting for the bus. But, you know, that's another possibility because a lot of people park there and they pull their bikes out and they just drove up from wherever.
Yeah, RTD's a pretty good spot. I could ask RTD how they feel about that.
Because they also have in town, you know, you've got the bike shop, right? And so a lot of people just gravitate there. So, you know, I think having it too close to the bike shop wouldn't be as good as having it a little bit further away.
I agree. Yeah, our first knee-jerk reaction is, oh, over by the bike place, but they already work on bikes there. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so is there a consensus? You want me to ask RTD? Is there one place anybody likes more than another? I'm going to call the guy, the person that wants to donate this piece of equipment. I don't know what it looks like at all, so I still need to find out what it is he's donating. But he just wanted to reach out to get a feel from Nederland if we even wanted it and if there's a place to put it.
And the other plug I'll put in is like when you pull into the Ned bus into Boulder, they've got a bike repair station right there too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that throw bikes on the Ned bus and bring them up, you know, so.
Yeah, my vote would be for that, for near the RTD or the bridge by the visitor center.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the RTD lot would make the most sense. That gets the most bike traffic in town, I think.
Okay, cool. I'll reach out to RTD and see what they say. I'll talk to this person to find out what exactly he's proposing, and maybe at the next meeting I'll have a little more clarity on what the piece of equipment is and if RTD is in favor of having one of those things installed in their lawn.
Cool.
And then Jesse, on the conceptual plan that was sent out, it's a little bit different than what we talked about. Did you want to, were you looking for feedback on that?
On the Confluent Designs plan?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
You know, when we had walked it, the trail along the wastewater fence line.
Yes. So, yeah.
I thought we had talked about just removing that trail.
Yeah, I think we talked about removing the one from kind of the entrance area to, along this roadside. But I know that they did ask for feedback on whether the path should go on the
so on the west side of the plan, you know, kind of along East Street, they did request feedback on whether they would like the path to go on the inside of the fence, on the Gershio Field side, rather than kind of where it currently is being laid on the outside of the fence.
I'm open to whatever.
Okay. Let's,
I guess my thought was having it on the outside of the fence would have more, would result in more area, more grassy area.
yeah.
But it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on that too. It does save more grassy area, but I kind of get the design aesthetics, why you would want it on the inside of the park too.
And then this design also shows 2 separate entrances for the driveways, but we've combined those. Provide a little more area for the park.
Yeah.
Where are these entrances? Sorry, I'm looking at the map, but I don't know.
Hey, it's Miranda. Hi, I'm here too. Chris, can you share your screen? I'm on my personal computer, so I don't have it. Can someone share their screen so we're looking at the same thing?
Yeah, let me go into my emails because I'm on a different computer too. But
I just tried to email it to my personal email, so I'm hoping. Oh, it came through. Okay, hold on. I'm pulling it up.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. John, thank you.
Thank
I'm like,
you.
I
Yeah,
don't know what you're looking at. Okay.
I'm on my phone.
You
so
want this
everything's-
picture here?
Or I'm almost thinking 3. Jesse, will you go back and talk about what you were just saying? I just want to make sure I'm writing it down too when we email them.
Yeah, of just this. Do you see on 3 here? You can kind of see along the western side, along East Street there. Just yeah, exactly. You see the path. They have got the path running along the inside of the fence.
Okay. Yeah.
Into Gershio Field, which of course kind of one of the goals has always been to kind of maximize the usable space. But they kind of did have some reasoning. Let's see, it was just, they say having a parking lot back up into a street isn't ideal. They would like more backup space. Having extra backup space before entering a roadway is generally recommended, as they've drawn onto the map here. And then they've said wheel stops too, which I believe there are wheel stops there. I think they're just overgrown, right, Chris? I feel like I've seen them.
there's some, but we're going to purchase some new ones.
Okay.
So you're saying move it
The
further?
path.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that too. I'll definitely be interested in hearing the board's opinion. And then I guess the other thing we should mention too is that she hasn't written on here about the discussion that we had actually on the ground, which was the pedestrian crossing. I know we've kind of suggested that pedestrian crossing be in the middle, and they have, said it's more traditional to have the crossing closer to the
Like here?
just the junction. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, people
Exactly.
aren't looking for a crosswalk here, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, more over here.
Yeah. And I see that.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
But Jesse, you're saying that it's missing, that it was supposed to be in this, and it's obviously not.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that was just one of the
Okay.
things that we discussed on the walk around that I've noticed is not
Okay.
mentioned.
Is it on this page? No.
No, that's just like 3 is I think, in my opinion, 3 is the best to see it all.
Yeah.
Well, aside from the parking lot piece. Okay.
And then they also have the little trail, down on the south side along the maintenance drive, which we were considering just eliminating, as I think it just will not really be used. I think most people are going to cut across the grass anyway. unless they're coming from the kind of graffiti wall by Teens Inc.
And then what I was saying a moment ago, the entrance is being shared with the teen center.
This entrance here.
Yes.
So you're saying like instead of this entrance and this entrance, you're going to come in here and cut this way or something?
No, they just sort of merge.
Oh, so get rid of this tree basically.
Yeah, yes. There's actually a telephone pole there. And we've already moved it, but they kind of merged right there. So
Okay.
we would just
So
want
in
to,
effect, this maintenance kind of came down a little bit maybe and gave a little more space up here.
yes.
Okay.
So wait, hold on. We're gonna get rid of the trail that goes along the maintenance drive. Is that what you're saying, Jess?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm confused. Okay.
Well, because that trail does connect back, right? Along the wastewater.
Yeah,
treatment
it does.
plant.
Yeah, that would kind of create a loop around. So
Because I guess I'm not too, I guess it doesn't make much sense to me to have a trail along East Street at all if it's just gonna dead end.
I guess you would be accessing it from the south and heading north from that way, or
Right,
you would.
so we look at that as kind of an entrance into the park, but not part of like the loop anymore.
Let me go back. Is there, no. Trying to get a bigger picture here.
No, it's not something I feel strongly about either way. So any thoughts are good.
Yeah, I
Real
don't know.
quick,
Oh,
could we just the first issue that was brought up, should we just close that out? So the question was whether to have that trail going along the parking space fence line, whether to have it on the west or the east side of that fence line. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah, I would definitely opt for the east, just to have the trail, have it in a little more spacious area. Seems like it would get really cluttered if it were on the west side of that fence line.
And plus with the parking, like
agree.
you were saying, people could park and cut off the trail almost. Is that what you're saying? They come in, their nose in too far?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I don't know, I also really like the idea of just that, of being in the park when you're in the park, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I'm fine.
I mean, I'd also be in favor of keeping the trail all around Guercio Field. I mean,
It could be
I could see
cool.
myself running around that pretty frequently.
Yeah, I agree. Having that as a pseudo track could be really cool.
So both, even on the south side, it would be on the inside of the fence, on the park side.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, I
think it
think
would also
people would-
give the field more of a cohesive feel if people, wanted to play sports and whatnot. To have it fully encircled would be cool. I think it's worth keeping the full trail.
And I think people with small kids would be a lot happier to have them on like this side of the fence kind of thing too.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good to me. Let's pass that on. Great. So let's see.
And so then I was just gonna ask a question.
Yeah.
We've got a trail there marked on the south, on the south side of the future wetland restoration site. That's part of this project, right? That trail? Marking?
Like here, you're saying?
Yeah, those two black lines that seem to be a trail underneath there.
It's
Oh, down
actually-
here.
Oh, yeah, that's the existing trail, right?
There's a trail there. It's actually City of Boulder's property. That's negotiations with the city as of lately have been challenging.
Yeah.
And may require an easement. No, the whole trail around the wastewater plant, all the way over to the City of Boulder's parking lot is all actually on City of Boulder's land. And so they've been kind of difficult in what they
So,
want to see there.
I know, Chris, you talked to Robbie and I actually talked to Kim today, and I think we probably had similar conversations, but long story short, I got from them that they are drafting an IGA and that it does include, Eric, that trail and it's kind of a trade out, you know, we grant an easement in some areas and they're granting easements. And so it was just going to be captured in an IGA. And if there are any other parts of this plan that fall into City of Boulder, that as long as they were in agreement, that would also be captured in that IGA.
Okay, good.
So that would mean you could walk along this south part and then go around the skate park and then keep going like this and then through the IGA. That would be Netherlands maintaining it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Miranda, did Robbie send a list of the items that they would like to see incorporated, or is that just
They
kind of
didn't.
verbal?
No, they didn't. And so Kim acknowledged that they were a bit behind. And so I'm not sure how, I think we'll have a brief conversation tomorrow. Chris sent them this plan. I also sent them this plan. We just doubled up on each other. So they
Right.
have the site plan. You know, they want to be involved. They definitely want to weigh in on the site plan. I alerted them to funding, and I think Chris did too, of, you know, we can't accommodate a giant wish list. We're pretty limited, and so we can make minor adjustments, but
Yeah.
we kind of are sticking to this. And so we did not get that ahead of time, but my hope is that that comes out of tomorrow's conversation.
Me
Okay.
too.
So there's going to be an easement for that, and then an easement for the parking lot along the maintenance road to the north
Mhm.
side.
Yeah, correct. We should have the IGA in hand for review, she said, by ideally end of this week or next week.
Oh,
So that'll be
perfect.
good to see.
They've basically stopped the work on their property until there's an IGA in place.
Right, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that's, she knows that there's some urgency. So sounds like it was in the attorney's world, but near completion.
And then they're also sending the draft agreement for the bathrooms.
It's all going to be
Okay.
captured in this IGA because originally town was supposed to draft an easement agreement and then they were going to draft a few agreements, but Kim felt it was easiest just to throw it all in one agreement
Okay.
for just the entire area, which I
Yeah.
think will
That
be good.
makes sense. So just to keep, I'm a walking man going past this sewer treatment plant. Then can you walk up this way and then you would join the Circum-Gershio Field Trail and kind of go around like that? Is that how it's envisioned now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then that even makes more sense of the keeping it inside the fence then. And then you kind of keeping the people away from the cars, you know?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, should I stop sharing screen to go to the next thing or?
No, I mean, it's kind of useful just for the
Okay.
moment.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm kind of with Dan. I'm like, I'm taking notes too on like a comments here. So I just want to make sure I have everything captured.
Yeah, I know the feedback from Atashna was just to keep the number of benches as high as we can.
Okay.
So that was her feedback, and to focus the plantings on visual shielding around the western and northern sides of the wastewater treatment plant.
All right, let's talk about that for a moment because
Yeah.
my thought was we're going to use reclaimed water from the wastewater plant to irrigate the the plantings, I can really only do that inside the wastewater plant fence. I can't do it outside.
Why is that?
It gets complicated with regulations, regulatory reasons,
Yeah.
reporting requirements and regulatory reasons. That's what I'd like to avoid. We can use regular domestic water outside the fence, I guess. My staff's small to do that kind of extra work and reporting requirements and chlorinating the wastewater and all that.
So Chris, on the eastern side of the wastewater treatment plant where they say they have screen and plantings, is that not already within the fence on this map?
It's within the fence on this map.
Okay. So this map then basically does work with that idea.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I actually think that that's fine.
Now it could spill out beyond the fence. I just can't water that, may still get wet. But I just don't want to dedicate plantings on the outside of the fence that I'm not able to irrigate.
Yeah, I guess the only ones are on the south side of the plant that seem to be outside the fence.
Yeah.
What about just nixing irrigation altogether and going with the whole zero escape concept, just to minimize maintenance costs and maybe minimize the installation cost as well, so we could direct that money elsewhere, maybe to more benches, for example. But I don't know. It seems like irrigation is unnecessary for the accent areas.
I mean, it's just we've got $41,000 of plants to plant. So, and the whole point of the grant was to create a usable park space, that was accessible to the public. So, I mean, it seems like a lot of plants should be in the park rather than in the wastewater treatment plant behind a chain link fence. It just seems counterintuitive to the whole point of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we would like to screen the wastewater treatment plant, and that plants do seem to be a good way of doing it. Like, I'm not sure we want to be looking out over the plant, especially if it's a raised trail. I don't know. I can't.
And I'm
really
sure it's going to
picture
look beautiful on the inside of the wastewater treatment plant looking out, but that's kind of not the point of this grant. It was to create a park for the public. So I feel like we need to process that all this nutrient-rich topsoil that was flagged and saved for years gets used for these plantings that it was always designated for.
Well, is there any reason you can't water them using the lake water? It's just going to go, 8 feet over and go back into the lake.
And there's going to be a watering faucet that we could hook up, hoses to on the restrooms that are going in. There's a water line going in. So that was always Nikki's plan, was to water from there with hoses and sprinklers.
But that's like processed drinking water, right? As opposed to just raw lake water. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, is that something we can do?
But being that the reservoir recedes significantly far, like throughout the year, that could get kind of difficult to draw from it during a low water time.
I also doubt that we're allowed to.
Yeah.
Well, right. I'm sure there's all kinds of reasons. I was just thinking like water's like 8 feet away and it's just going to drain back into the same pile.
Logic normally doesn't apply in these situations.
All right.
So, I mean, how do most other municipalities get around that? Because most of the parks I go to, they say, you know, do not drink the sprinkler water. It is reused grey water, or, you know, the hose water, because they say it's being reused. So
I don't know. They follow the regulatory guidelines for reporting requirements.
Yeah, I mean, the way
Maybe
that I'm at
We
least
could do that, I guess.
the way that I'm reading this map is that the only plantings that would be behind the fence are the ones along the shoreline there, right to the.
and on the north side, and on it's already and the yeah, according to the map, on the north side and the east side.
That's hard to tell because it seems to overlap the.
But in the
fence,
real
so-
world, it's
very
if you go down there today, like you can see that, you know, Chris has already there's started to create berms on the inside of the 4 perimeters. So it's just kind of, we're just catching up with what's going on. I'm concerned that there's not enough topsoil left to do, you know, to fulfill the plan as we've outlined.
Yeah, I guess I was only really looking at the screen plantings on the east side along the shoreline, which that seems logical, but having any others inside the treatment plant doesn't really seem logical. Like those probably should be outside it in the park. I mean, I can't really tell from the map, like it looks like the fence is right alongside the trail and that there wouldn't be any room for anything between the two things on the east side there.
Yeah, that's the
along
side that
the
makes
water.
sense. I agree. Yeah.
So if what we're doing there is blocking the wind and blocking the view of the wastewater plant, and if because of space or whatever it has to be inside the fence like that I feel like we can get away with and make sense. But the rest of the plantings I think should probably be in the park.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard when we're not there and we're looking at this map. Like I can't really see what it's like on the ground.
And I feel this is like we've been discussing this for the last 2 years, and like we've been discussing watering and different ways to water the plantings, and it was so I was just surprised to see that there was so much planting going on the inside of the wastewater treatment plant, and just how we're going to move forward with fulfilling kind of the conceptual designs here.
I think irrigation is necessary.
Yeah.
Maybe it can be xeriscaped. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. The idea of it is you shouldn't have to know how, right? It should just grow without doing anything. Xeriscape.
I love it.
Right? But I don't know how to do it. So to me, I think you need water. Can't really grow grass without water. Grow. The grass at Chipeta is green because we water it. These plants, $40,000 worth of plants, have to be watered. Somebody has to do it. And I don't have the staff to do it. I just don't. One year we tried to water Gercio Field with hoses, and it just was not successful. I don't have people.
So I think this is why, like in the plan, it was just we've chosen native kind of drought hardy, water drought hardy plants. Kind of the recommended native tree and shrub plantings that don't require excessive water, except for the first 2 years of that first initial settling in period.
So is there a way that we can, I have no idea about these regulations and the way that it works, but is there a way we can at least kind of look into what it would take if we were to irrigate outside of the wastewater treatment facility kind of fence area?
Yep.
Yeah, let us
It'd just be nice to understand.
do that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I do think it makes sense to have plants inside along the fence on the east side there along the trail, because I'm not sure where else they would go. And I'm not sure, I think that we need to have the screen for it to still feel like a park. I like, Daniel's idea of doing xeriscaping, but the problem with xeriscaping is it doesn't provide any windbreaks. And a lot of the idea here was
Visual
to put in
visual shelter, which was, yeah.
native trees and things like that would provide some windbreaks and some shelter. And without that, it's just going to be open and
What we've got
so-
already.
Yeah, I was picturing like, maybe a thick aspen grove mixed with grasses, but that, during the dry season wouldn't provide a very good screen. So yeah, I understand.
No, I mean, aspen are definitely on the planted list of the
Yeah.
native plants and shrubs. And once they're established, like from what Nikki and Rhea have said, they require very little in annual, watering, because the water table is so high here. So once the plants are established, they shouldn't require a huge amount, but it is going to be that first couple of years they are going to need extra water.
Yeah, and if there's a super dry year, it might
Yes.
be necessary to just have that infrastructure in place. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't know, I don't know if this is helpful, but yeah, we've got a meeting tomorrow morning. If anyone, we've got space for one more ProSab member for anyone who wants to hop on from 9 till 10 tomorrow morning, just to kind of specifically talk about some of these landscape details and components.
I would love to, but I will be in a field in the middle of nowhere.
Perfect.
Well, this year we're really focusing on infrastructure and planting next year, because I just don't think the timing's going to be right. We're just not going to be ready. So we have time to talk about this more and maybe meet on site with folks to kind of get an idea of what we want to see down there. I'll research the wastewater irrigation. I actually had pulled it up already, and then I was like, oh geez, and stopped. If it's inside my yard, it's a lot easier to deal with, but having to go outside the yard, then it becomes more of a pain. But I'll pull it up and I'll look at it. And really, the infrastructure is what's important. If the infrastructure is in place along the outside of the fence and we have to water with treated water, we figure out the reclaim situation, at least the infrastructure's there. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and if you need any, I mean, I don't know what we can do, but if you need any support with any of that, just ask and we'll try to help.
Yeah, just pass any of this on. We'll like keep reaching out to, some of the experts in town, because it would be interesting to explore some more of the like just drip feed systems or whatever we can have that would minimize public works maintenance time.
Okay.
It's a big deal for you.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of cranking on. We are also in touch with 2 companies regarding the interpretive signage. We're in touch with Ecos Designs and Husky Signs. So Ecos have sent over their proposal. I'm not sure I forwarded that to you. They just sent that a few days ago. So I will forward that on to you. They've sent their proposal, and I did have a meeting scheduled today with Mark from Husky Signs just to get the same kind of proposal sent over. My video is frozen there. But no, that got cancelled. He just got diagnosed with COVID today, so we couldn't meet up. So I will just be sending on like the budget and the project specs over to those guys, and then we'll have the 2 proposals with scopes from the 2 different companies. Just for your feedback too, like Ecos have proposed 2 interpretive signs, and we have kind of tentatively said one of the signs should be on the subject of water ecology and land stewardship. to kind of fall in line with the grant narrative, etc. And then sign number 2 would be regarding the history of Barker and Gushio. And I think these should be located on the map there. We've got one at the entrance area, accent area 1, and another one, I believe, in accent area 3, or it could be 2. Yeah, I think it's 2 actually. But yeah, give any feedback about the locations of that too, if you would like. And I'll be sure to keep forwarding on the information from those guys. And the same goes with the Jason Fan art installation thing. We're still kind of back and forwards about questions on materials, the types of materials and the wood needed, willow primarily it sounds like, and whether we need to chop it to certain lengths, whether it needs to be treated in any way or soaked before using. I've had some questions about kind of the base material and the size of installation, liability issues, kind of the bedding around would need to be, certain regulations. And then we would probably have to cover our liability coverage with a sign saying, something like climb at your own risk on the interactive sculpture. And I'll keep sending on some information. We're just kind of in contact with Ariel from Teens Inc. about coordinating with the youth groups. She has suggested a tentative date from the 7th to the 10th of September for the art installation workshops. So hopefully I will hear back from his team kind of soon. I'd like to get this a bit more solidified, but they're a little wishy-washy, so fingers crossed that keeps going to plan.
So Jesse, I know that Confluent Design spoke to us a little bit about this, and last call I had with them, they talked about it again. So Chris, I guess I'm looking to you. They really feel like we should talk with our insurance and just see about, there's just a huge concern even with a sign of climb at your own risk, just the liability town's taking on. And if it's worth talking with our CIRSA representative about that. And I don't know, Chris, what's your thought?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay, we'll add that. I think so too. I agree, Jesse, we still should probably have a sign, but if one thing happens, it's going to be town no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what the difference is, because we've got some 5 feet boulders around the area, and there's not, that would be a bigger fall than anything from like a 3-foot piece of wood that's there. So I just wonder what the difference is.
I'll connect with I'll talk to Karen too and just see like who might be the best person to ask.
Yeah, because if someone falls off a big rock down there, who is liable? How is that different from falling from an installation? And
I think town, it's kind of like that trail that goes around Barker. When we had that conversation, it was like, who would be sued? And it's like everyone. I think that's kind of, it's like, who can they? Yeah, I think it's worth not even just the play structure, but kind of larger than that. It's climbable items. Okay.
So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have more information on those components right now, but that is what I've got. Hey Chris, do you have anything too on the water line or restroom updates?
No.
There's stuff going on down there. So
the water line is being installed, but it's not complete. And then we'll be talking about the restroom tomorrow with City of Boulder.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, if people ask what's going on down on Gushio, that is what's going on right now. It's the water line that is being installed. I think that is most of that. Great. Anyone else got anything to add on this for the time being? Otherwise, we'll just chug on to the next item. Awesome.
The only thing I would say is in talking with Mayor Larson about the concept, obviously we want to bring it before the board for that public vetting, but we did agree to put it on as discussion, kind of with that caveat of we don't have a lot of money. So while we're open to talking about, making minor adjustments, it can't be, again, like that dreaming session. And so I'd love to try and go before the board the 15th of June. Originally it was next week, but I think that's unrealistic. So the aim would be to do it the 15th.
Okay, what kind of discussion would you hope to have?
Really just presenting them whatever this final site design looks like, and it's more for public vetting. Is
Yeah.
like, do you have any comments or feedback? A part of me is thinking maybe even informational seems more appropriate, but Mayor Larson thought keep it as discussion, to allow the board to talk through it, but with that understanding of we've reached our financial max, and so aside from minor adjustments, it's really just more FYI, this is what it is.
Yeah, I
that's-
would really like it to be an informational item, but okay, if it's gonna have to be discussion, I guess. fine.
Well, he hasn't landed on that. Would you be open to having that conversation, Eric, with the mayor about it being information?
Sure, I mean, I do feel like we have essentially already approved this, and this is just presenting a more detailed version of what we've already approved to happen.
I feel similarly, and so again, it's pushed out. So we would normally meet with Mayor Larson the week prior to that meeting anyway. So I'm gonna put it as information and just mention that you're in support of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, because then it's just gonna be like, well, where's the greenhouse and the pump track?
No, every time it's like, where's the climbing wall? This is so boring.
Right.
You're
Where's
right.
the climbing wall? Where's the swimming pool?
Okay, I'm in. That's originally where I had it actually, so I'm in full support of it staying there. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess just like to wrap it up too, as far as public communications go, this would be another good thing to have a look as a little small flyer about. I've actually already written the article for the Mountain Ear, which I can send on to you guys first before, just to kind of get the public awareness out about what is the plan, what is going on, so people don't freak out, and just to keep it in people's consciousness. So yeah, a flyer about the Resilient Communities grant too, and then kind of maybe just a request for volunteers on planting days and laying crusher fine and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Peter, I know you all know that Peter's on here as me, but Peter, the ProSat or the GoCo webpage really hasn't been updated in a minute, and actually still has information about the request of interest for an architect, which we already have. So I don't know if you've got some time this week to put some TLC and work your magic on that page, but that would be really cool if maybe Jesse, some of what you're talking about could go onto that website page.
Yeah, some of these, even these plans and the updated site plan, that would be awesome to get up on there. Thank you.
Yeah, I can probably work on that tomorrow or Thursday.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter.
Yay.
And as accurate as a timeline on things as well would be nice to sort of give people general ideas of when things are going to be happening, so when they start seeing construction, they know what it's about.
Yeah,
agreed.
Keep updating that, it evolves.
Yeah, there's like a link in here, Peter, to the timeline, but I agree with Eric that maybe we pull that out so it's not just like a clickable document. That's what we submitted with the grant, and it's more of that kind of calendar we can update as things happen.
Yeah, I can work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been really helpful to me. This discussion has really helped. We'll be meeting and discussing it further tomorrow morning. Okay, so Ryan and Eric, if you have any updates on the Trails Master Plan, I have not really had a chance to look at much since the last meeting, so I will let you take it away.
Not many updates. So Eric wrote a blurb, which is to introduce what the master plan survey is all about. And now I think we're at a state of readiness to work with Miranda and Peter and others on kind of distributing links to the survey and collecting some public feedback.
Sounds good. It looked good to me. I liked it.
So yeah, Miranda, I don't know if you can just take it away and do your thing, or I'm happy to jump on a call with you and
yeah. So Peter, the one, and I think you were on that email, the one thing I changed was like I removed it was like a draft or whatever that word was from the URL. So I think it's ready to be launched with Eric's blurb. And I think, Peter, am I correct that it really just needs to be published at this point again? Maybe re-updated and published?
I haven't had a chance to look at that. I believe you sent that after I left for the day.
Okay.
So yeah,
maybe you weren't on that email. So, but I think it's a published page. I changed the URL name So it took off the like template or draft or whatever it said. So I think it's in good shape, but we can take it from here, I guess, Brian and Eric and team.
Yeah, and I'll add that URL, you know, or a QR code of the URL to any of this media that's going out too.
Oh, that's great.
So then do you, if we launch it tomorrow, do you want us to do kind of our usual social media push? And
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I assumed you'd probably get the word out.
Yep. Cool.
What the normal thing is, and I think it's far enough after the 2030 surveys and the other types of art surveys that might have gotten over some of their survey fatigue.
Yeah.
So Peter, I did forget to CC you on this, so I'm forwarding this to you, so it's in your world. But you, before the URL, you had test, and so I just took the test out, and so now it actually is an active link.
Oh, okay.
We just need to add the blurb.
All right, sounds good.
And just by way of blurbing, I think the blurb on the actual survey is okay as is. The blurb that Eric wrote is something for you to include in the publicity materials or the social media posts that you do.
Okay. You don't, so we don't need that in the site itself.
No, I don't think so. I think the site itself actually says something like that already.
All right, well, the site is, it's live. You can post it, you can do whatever you want with it as of right now.
But I do think it'll go better if it comes from official channels.
Yeah.
Rockin'. Thanks a bunch,
Cool.
everybody.
Hey, Brian, real quick on a question, and maybe it has nothing to do with this in a way, but you were going to talk with the Boulder mapping GIS folk and see if you can incorporate some of the NED stuff. I was just wondering if there was any updates or anything.
Yeah, tiny update on that one is I met with those folks, and what I was originally trying to do is to see if they had some better maps for us to use to put into the survey itself, because as you'll see if you look at the survey, the maps have just been kind of copied and pasted from various places, and they're a little bit hard to see and hard to read. So they weren't able to cooperate on that front, partly because they don't want to include any information about unofficial trails that aren't officially sanctioned by Boulder County or Forest Service or whatever. But that said, I think once we get around to doing some better map signage and pending the results of this trails master plan, if we want to publish a new trail map for the town, I think they expressed interest and willingness in helping us do that using kind of GIS software that we could then publish out in a more user-friendly way. So I'm just keeping those conversations alive with those folks a little bit, but they were helpful, and then they stopped being helpful, and I think they'll be helpful again sometime in the future.
Right. So in theory, then the KML files we push it to them, and they put it on Boulder trails.
Yeah, I think that'd be the idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent segue into the annual municipal open space and trails requests. So, I mean, this has kind of just been floating around on our agenda for the last few meetings here. And this is the one that, so every year the county invites the municipalities of Boulder County to submit requests for open space and trail projects. And so a few months ago, Chris Pelletier offered to put a grant together a couple of months ago. And I know Miranda suggested that we maybe not request it unless this really is a priority item. Public works are, I think we can all recognize that they're massively overloaded right now, but it does come up, it does keep coming up. So we're just going to address it real quickly here. And I can send any of the past information to you guys too. So last year, Chris asked for, there's a number of trails from our kind of trails work map that we've been passing around the last few months too. So we've requested trails like 10, 15, and 16 from that trails map. And we're in touch with Tina Nielsen is the name of the special parks manager down in Boulder County. And so last year, basically, we requested the trail along County Road 130, which is, the Old Town to High School. And that's kind of in progress. There's various rights of way issues that need to be addressed before that can kind of go forward. But as far as I'm aware, it still is in the works, and hopefully will start to be addressed next year. So it's kind of been hard to pin down the criteria for this funding. So it can only go towards trails that are out of Nederland town limits that connect to Boulder County open space. So that pretty much eliminates all of our priority trails, like the northern side of Barker, kind of the connection trails with Stinky Gulch, a lot of them. So if anyone has feedback or information about potential trails that we could even request funding for, or any that are interest for that are out of town limits that connect to open space, believe that is the criteria. So otherwise, as far as it stands, we're just kind of letting it go this year because we've just got enough going on, and the trail that we requested last year is still in progress. So definitely appreciate any feedback on that.
I'm in favor of letting it lapse this year.
Cool.
That said, we're going to get some great responses from the Trails survey, and we're going to have some awesome ideas from the public for next year.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, is that on, without looking at it, is that on the Trails survey? Is it like out of town trails?
Yeah, I mean, there's a question that says, where would you like to see trails now that don't exist at the moment? And people can self-identify areas or kind of, since we don't have the clickable map anymore, I think you just kind of have to write it in. But we should have specified that it needed to be within town or outside of town. So I suspect.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Town trails.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that leaves it open, kind of just to see where people really do want the trails.
Peter, do you remember when you set this up, who the results of this survey will go to?
I don't off the top of my head.
I guess that's a question maybe for everyone. Do you want it sent to like all of ProSab? Do you want it just sent to Brian and Eric for now? Do you want town staff to collect the information? What would you like?
I would, speaking on behalf of maybe some of the other ProSAB people, I don't think you want to see every single result. I think it makes sense for us to consolidate the results and present it back to the greater board. I don't know how the results come in. Does it show up as like a CSV file or?
Yeah, so I guess maybe Peter, you can guide me on this. I know it'll give you an automatic email saying the survey was completed, but then you can download all the data in a file. But I don't know if is there a way to even turn off that feature where we don't necessarily get notified every time someone fills it out?
Well, you're in luck because right now the function
it doesn't even work.
the email function on our website's broken. But
that's right.
I do believe you don't need to put in an email, and you can just download it all later. And there's a few different file types you can save them as. I think in CSV file, something like that.
Cool. So I'd say just let's leave it open for a while. If we can turn off the email bombardment, that's probably good. And when the right amount of time has passed, I can work with Peter to understand like, hey, when was the last time somebody responded to this? And if it looks like people are probably done, then we can either do another blast if we don't have enough results, or we could just download the results and have a look and summarize them for everybody else.
Yeah, it sounds good.
That sounds good. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, guys. So moving on, we're doing really good. Thank you. I'm sorry. I know this is such a long one. We've just got so much to cover here. Just the last couple of items here. We have town cleanup, a review of our plans for any participation in the town cleanup event. So on my end, I'm definitely going to try and rustle together these kind of couple of little flyers to give out. If anyone is interested in volunteering, Nikki did forward the information. You have to be there present by 7:30 a.m. to get the training, and anyone who participates does get to get rid of their own truckload of stuff at the end of the event, so you don't miss out on that. And then we'll just be kind of giving out flyers at the event, I'm assuming. I've missed a bunch of the meetings, so if you have anything to add to that, Miranda or anyone.
Yeah. So I guess on the volunteer part, while you're more than welcome to just show up, it would be nice if you told us ahead of time so we can
Yeah.
position people appropriately. We actually have like really neat cloth bags that have the town logo on it. We have 125 to give out. And so we're asking that if you have flyers to give them to us by next week at the latest, by next Thursday, so we can put them in. But it'll be cool to give to people as a kind of a thank you and acknowledgement for coming. And so I think a little flyer to the trails survey and anything else, maybe just even like a QR code. Maybe we could have like a one pager of ProSab things with QR codes, all our sites or something like that. But something to promote what's going on with ProSab. We'd like to fill those bags up to give them out. But a fun new gift thing this year.
Oh, thank you so much for doing that. That sounds great. I think the kind of the physical paper media is really going to be helpful. That I really enjoyed getting that stuff last year.
Yeah, we figure since, it's not quite the same COVID restrictions, we're still treating it the same. And it was hard because of the tables. You're not walking around interacting with those informational booths. So this seems like a better way to get that information out.
Great. And then just on that note too, I guess on the day after is Wild Bears, kind of in coordination with that is the Wild Bear Run trash cleanup. And they're meeting at the Nature Center at, I think it's 10 a.m. And there's going to be giving out bags, Springer gloves, and then, it's going to be the kind of annual trash pickup day along the creek side and at the park and around town. Am I forgetting anything about the town cleanup event?
No, I think you've got it all.
Okay. So other business is we've been requested to give a little bit of feedback about interviewing the new town administrator candidate.
For this, I'm going to leave you so I don't have an
I was going to say, let Miranda get
I'm
out.
leaving. But is there anything you need from me before I say goodbye?
No, that is the last thing I think on the agenda tonight. So.
Sounds good. I'm signing off then.
Thank you so much, Miranda. I will speak to you in like 11 hours.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Okay, bye.
Bye. So do you want to read the question, Eric? Oh, sorry.
It was recommended earlier. Miranda got the email that Eric sent out, so it was recommended that if you can change that, just so she doesn't have an advantage in the interview, that would be.
Yeah, I forgot that she's on every single list.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Everything goes to Miranda.
Yeah. Can we just send it to what's his name too, so that they both have the question in advance?
There you go. That would work.
But yeah, I don't like. We're not going to have the opportunity. Like each person is going to be able to ask one question, and because I'm the liaison to the ProSab board, I figured it should be a ProSab related question. And again, we only have one question. We can't ask a series of questions. I mean, I kind of worked two questions into one here, but I think that they're related enough that someone could answer it as a single response. But yeah, open to suggestions on that language.
Yeah, Drats, because your question was so great. It was perfect. Yeah, I really liked it. And I would just say that both candidates seem really awesome. So I'd be happy with either and both. They're both, excellently qualified and
well, we can always double bluff Miranda and just ask her the question as written that she's not expecting. There's really no, as far as I can see, it's really wording. It's not the content of the question.
Yeah. No, the content will
right.
Yeah, it will remain the same. So I'd be happy with the question as it is written, or with minor, wording change.
Maybe we could change
how do you balance, like, how do you envision balancing recreational opportunities with the preservation of those resources, or, you know, something akin?
Yeah. So I was thinking of something along those lines, but it does get pretty specific, and
Yeah, it
I
does.
kind of don't want to lead
No.
anyone to, you know, answering the way that I want them to answer. I'm trying to get them to say what their own actual philosophy and vision for this sort of thing is.
Yeah, and that's why I
rather-
liked what are the roles? Yeah.
Like what do these assets do in a community as far as you're concerned? Like, what's your
Yeah.
vision of how these operate within a community? Maybe we could use that word.
Yeah.
And I'm not dialed into all of this hierarchy, but I know over the years people have been talking about that recreational area or recreational district or something like that. And you know, we kind of like pushed it off to the future. I don't know if that plays into this question somehow or not.
I mean,
Or
that
would
I really
there-
think that the rec district is a pipe dream that I mean, it would require a lot of discussion with Boulder County, probably a lot of discussion with Gilpin County. There would need to be intergovernmental agreements. When it was mentioned to the newly seated Boulder County commissioners by the Board of Trustees, when we had a meeting with them, they immediately were just like, yeah, we're not interested in that right now.
Okay,
So, yeah, I think that while a lot of people talk about it a lot, it's not something I see happening in the near future.
20-year
I
plan.
kind of, the open-ended question, like, how about the roles, is good though too. But yeah, I mean, I understand kind of funding is definitely a big thing that keeps coming around in our discussions.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, is like, you know,
Yeah.
how do we
Fund.
make sure that we
Yeah.
are able to fund our future vision, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's a good way to maybe change it, is to include how they get maintained and resourced in small communities like this, rather than just like what are they, but how do you manage them?
Yeah. Great, sounds good to me. And that's open to public and the board to hop in on and listen to. I think it's on Thursday.
Yeah, the virtual meeting is Thursday at 4.
Okay.
And maybe I can take the second half of the question and reserve it as a follow-up, and instead change the second half to something along the lines of, and how do these community assets get maintained and resourced, something along those lines. I can come up with better wording.
Yeah.
Or say, I like the word something like reliably resourced, or something where it's like sustainably resourced or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, how will their experiences help to, you know, search out opportunities for funding these resources?
And maybe ask them what strategies they would have for maintaining and sustainably resourcing these assets.
Here's another question that has nothing to do with Parks and Rec, but I would love to see on the board, if they get a random wild dice question, why is it that we still have 2006 DSL lines in our town? Okay, what are you going to do? There's fiber going to the elementary school. Why is it that the regular, everyone else can't?
There are digital divide grants right now being made available, that it's just, there's so many grants that staff are writing all the time that it's just hard to write it for every single thing.
But I mean, from a town, perspective, it's like, that's a big thing to have reliable, at least the option to have it. I mean, we have no option. It's like,
well, especially as the infrastructure is there is a fiber cable laid.
Whereas Ned could go in and broker a new deal with whoever it is, CenturyLink, and say, guys,
we don't have any, as far as I know, with them.
Do you know if there's any interest in hiring a grant writer again for the town? Yeah, who knows?
That sounds
It's not
good in
budgeted
theory,
for, but
but
Well, I'm just thinking of this, the whole right, they have the right to the rights or whatever they have in order to only allow the single
Yeah.
company in here to offer the DSL. Maybe we need to renegotiate that right, I don't know. That's just to you on the side, like if there's any way to get a digital question in there.
for sure.
yeah, it does keep coming up these days. Okay, well, I think that is everything that we have got on the agenda tonight. It is 9:25. We've had a 2.5 hour long meeting. You've all doing amazing. Thank you all so much for participating and for providing feedback. It is much appreciated and valued. So thank you very much.
I motion we close.
And, yeah, thank you. I I'll second that.
Aye.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.